Whiskey 51.
Good evening, folks, and welcome to a very special Christmas edition of Firefighter Storytellers. Live on the Firefighter Netcast radio network, I'm your host, Tiger Schmittendorf. I'm the Deputy Fire Coordinator for the Erie County Department of Emergency Services here in Buffalo, New York. And I'm also a Run to the Curb kid, and we're going to talk about that in just a second here. Count my blessings every day. I've been able to make my career in the fire service, and I'm proud to serve the 97 fire departments and some 5,000 firefighters here in Erie County. And we have a very special show tonight, certainly based around the Christmas theme, but also I want to point out to you, if you're listening live, that you can go to another website, www.eriecountyfireblotter, BLOTTER.com, and we're actually streaming live video of the show here tonight, and we are live from the Buffalo Fire Historical Society. So some very cool stuff. If this is your first time listening to Firefighter Storytellers, the whole premise of the show is simply to facilitate conversations amongst firefighters, as if we were sitting on the tailboard of the truck or sitting around the kitchen table in the station, and that's exactly what we're doing here tonight at the Buffalo Fire Museum. We're sitting around the table. I've got my mug of coffee, compliments of Margaret Coghlan here, and we're set to go. And certainly we encourage you, the listener, to call in at any time with your own stories of what brought you to the fire service, maybe what keeps you going day to day, and what brought you to where you are as well. And I always tell the story of how when I was a kid, whenever we saw flashing lights or heard sirens, we ran to the curb to see where the fire trucks were going. And thus my website was born, runtothecurb.com. And I encourage you to go there as well to see the story of Patty Coghlan, the gentleman sitting across from me. It's titled Fire Nerd, Pat Coghlan. That's a term that he uses himself. I didn't make that up on my own. So I think I have some license to use that. Pat is a retired firefighter from the Buffalo Fire Department and a 30-year veteran, and we're going to talk more about Pat's experiences. Before we go any further, I want to remind all of our callers that our call-in line for Blog Talk Radio is 347-327-9920. So please feel free to call in at any time. And we're sitting around the table here. Got some other special guests with us. Pat's daughter Margaret is here with us, and I thank Margaret now for putting together a lot of the background information on her father. And we have some folks who are off camera right now, but sitting in the cheap seats over there. My good friend and cohort John Adolph that works with me in emergency services, and a longtime friend of mine, Kevin Brotlick, and his dad Bill, who are active here at the Buffalo Fire Museum as well. So we're glad to have those folks. And another gentleman off camera is Jim Herr. He's the guy behind the camera, and he's the one facilitating us streaming live via eriecountyfireblotter.com, and we thank him for that. So again, I encourage you to go to Run to the Curb and check out Pat's story. And Pat, before I get into too many details, I'm going to show you a photo here that Margaret emailed me. And again, you can go to runtothecurb.com and take a look at that. There's a young kid in a fire hat sitting on a pedal wagon, and another kid sitting behind him. What if that were a fire truck? I guess we consider that the tiller position. Tell us a little bit about how you became a Run to the Curb kid.
Probably because my dad was a firefighter
Okay.
in Buffalo. He passed away in 1954, so he had 29 years on the job.
Wow, great.
And as we mentioned before, he threatened me if I ever became a fireman, he would do me harm.
Okay.
But needless to say, he had passed away when I was 14, and I had always had the interest.
Yeah.
And another fella that grew up with me was became a priest. He actually became the chaplain of the Buffalo Fire Department, is Al Clody. And Al and I we got our first radios when we were like 15. Tunable holocrafters with no squelch.
Nice.
And it worked.
Yeah.
So I guess that's when it started.
Yeah. That's cool. Now, when your dad was alive, did he take you to the firehouses?
I remember going with him on paydays.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he worked at Engine 9 at the time, and that was in the old house, which was an addition that was built to the original firehouse at Tupper in Washington.
Wow, right downtown.
Yeah, it was built 1927, I believe. And that's when they put the police station on the corner. And Engine 9 was behind ran out of their quarters was at 32 East Tupper Street.
Cool.
And I can remember going there.
And did you have any opportunity to go on runs or ride on the trucks?
No,
at
never
least?
that. But
No?
My dad, before he got sick, gave Al and I a ride when they had from Engine 13's quarters across the street to the drill yard in 1953, and that was before he got sick and went in the hospital. So and we were about 12 or 13 at the time. So.
Cool. So that's how you got your start.
I guess so.
Yeah.
And we, meaning Al and I, fostered our interest in the fire service by becoming house cats at Engine 34 in the North Main area of Buffalo, out in the university section. And it got to the point where my mother was looking for me, she'd call the firehouse down there.
Very neat, and that I have very similar roots in terms of the time that I spent at the firehouse and so forth too. So that's neat. I'm not familiar with the term house cats though. Is that what they called?
Buffs, house cats.
Okay.
I'm sure there are some
firehouse brat.
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess. But some of the guys at 34 worked with my father over the years. Too.
Okay.
So that maybe that's why they tolerated it.
Mm-hmm.
So
neat. So I'm sure you had a lot of folks a lot of guys to look up to there, and
well, some you looked up to, and some you tolerated, and some tolerated. A lot of them tolerated us.
Sure.
So.
Sure, no doubt. Well, that's very cool. And then, when was it that you had the opportunity to come on the department?
After high school, the Navy, and I took the exam in October of '64, and was appointed in October of 1965.
Great.
And the unique thing about our drill class was it was probably the last drill class to be ever appointed for the creation of a new company here in Buffalo.
Is that right?
And that was for Ladder 16. There was 24 of us in the drill class.
Wow.
And that's how many men were in the ladder company at that time.
Now I have to ask you, as the deputy fire coordinator for Erie County, where did you take your drill class?
Downtown?
Downtown.
Oh, the real drill school.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right, Bill?
Yeah.
The real drill school.
Yeah.
With the wooden tower.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the voting booths for the mass training.
Yeah, that's what they used.
Yeah, and to jump in the net, we stood on a platform that was about 10 foot off the ground. And it was 2 weeks of training.
2 weeks of training. So, wow. So you had to rely quite heavily on OJT.
Yeah, but of course, being a house cat and being a buff over the years, I knew how to stand a watch.
Yeah.
To begin with.
For sure.
So.
Oh, that's very cool. And then I also know that when you came on, you were first assigned to...
Went to Ladder 3 on
Ladder
Spring
3,
Street.
right.
Yes, and I was there from October of '65 to December of 1969.
Okay.
And the captain made battalion chief, and he asked me to go with him as his driver, his aide, whatever terminology you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
And I drove him for 6 years. Crazy besides.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's Chief Supples?
Harvey Supple.
Harvey Supple.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And
that's cool.
they did away with the chief's drivers in July 1st of 1976.
Wow. And when you were at Ladder 3, what was your job there?
I started out as just riding in the jump seat. We had just gotten a new 1965 American La France.
Okay. Open...
no, closed cab,
closed
open tiller.
cab, open jump seats?
No,
No.
closed cab, or not the four-door cab, but the
Yeah.
jump seats,
Yeah.
and the open tiller seat. And we went. I was
When you
there.
say open, you mean like exposed to the elements?
Oh yes, and the
yeah.
stones
Nice.
too.
Nice.
And I was there about 6 months, and the fellow that was the first tillerman on our platoon transferred. So I had, knowing the captain and then that, I asked him if I could be the tillerman, and nobody else wanted it.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. That's kind of neat. You know, talking about OJT, that era, so to speak, 1965 and then into the early 70s and stuff, I'm guessing there was plenty of opportunity for on-the-job training in terms of you got plenty of work.
Well, I would say so, yes.
Yeah.
Although it took me a week to get my first run at Ladder 3.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Wow. And
We were working 4 days, off 4, and we worked 4 nights and off 4. Went through the 4 days and we never turned a wheel. And come back in on nights. The first night never turned a wheel, and about 7 o'clock the next morning we had a chair fire, I think, up on Sycamore Street.
woohoo! Big chair fire,
Yeah,
huh?
that was about it, yeah.
To wet your whistle on?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, yeah.
So. But within that week I had a third alarm on, I think it was on Maston Avenue.
Wow.
So.
And making that transition from house cat to firefighter, was it everything you expected? Was it more? I mean, obviously everything, I mean, what you have dreamed to do, right?
To a point, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, really. Never gave it a thought back then. You're full of vim, vigor, and vitality. And as later on in my career, I mentioned to people in my crew that when we come in the fire department, we think we can walk on water.
Yeah.
And 30-some years later, you find out you can't.
Right.
And do you know why?
No, why, Pat?
You don't know where the rocks are. Think about it. I mean, come on, even in the suburban fire service.
Yep. Yep.
So.
Yep. No, that's very true, and I often say that I'm a rookie firefighter with 30 years of experience, and you know, day doesn't go past.
But
that I don't learn
experience
something.
helps
Yeah.
a
Oh,
lot.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, certainly does, and I'm enjoying my role as a senior man.
Sure.
My company right now is senior interior firefighter, anyways, and you know, went through the chief ranks for quite a while, and I'm enjoying riding backwards again. So never lose the love of doing that. So you went from driving in the chief, and then I think you went to Engine 21 after that, and you made
Actually, I
made
spent a
lieutenant?
month at Engine 27,
Okay.
and then I bid on Engine 21, and
Yeah.
I went to the 2nd platoon of Engine 21.
And 21's a pretty busy house even today.
And yes, they are, but at that time they were in the old house at Best and Earl, which
Okay.
is near the old football stadium and Best,
Right.
Jefferson and Best and that. And I was there from August of 76 till January of 78. And then I got detailed to Engine 24 as another phrase that I like to think I formed was acting temporary detail lieutenant.
Okay.
And I was that until.
Can you get that on a rocker on your uniform?
No, it took up
Yeah.
all the front of your shirt.
kind of like Schmittendorf.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I know the problem. I know it well.
But and I had that until October of '78, and due to some, I won't say finagling, but they changed some of the members that were out injured.
Yeah.
They changed the rulings on that, and that's when I became permanent. And it was like 10 days or 2 weeks before the list expired.
Wow.
So there was a bunch of us that were promoted at that time to permanent.
Yeah. So you just got in under the wire there.
Yeah, basically.
Now stepping back for a second, you and I also share a common bond, and that is you kept a journal.
Yes.
I kept a logbook, and if you're watching live through the streaming, you'll actually see my logbook is to my
The
left.
loose leaf.
Yep,
This
the
was-
big denim binder that I discovered after many years that I put away. And you kept a run book, but yours actually started even before you were on the fire department, right?
Yes, but we're not going to go there.
Okay.
We're going to start when I started,
Yeah.
and that was the first run fire I had was the chair fire.
Uh-huh.
That was November 4th of 1965, And when I quit keeping track of these, I had 3,916 runs, and that was March 15th of 1978.
Wow.
And then after that, well...
You lost track.
No,
Yeah.
I just didn't keep track of them.
Yeah. Yeah. 13 years of runs.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And then I was a lieutenant then because I was at 24.
Yeah. I thought I was doing well. I kept a log of every run I went on my first year in the fire department, and I don't think I quite got up to the same number that you did. That's for sure. But it's
well, this covered from 65 to 78.
Yeah.
So, like you say, 13 years.
Wow.
And whatever.
Yeah.
But anyway.
No, that's great stuff, and it's neat that you have it. I cherish my logbook every day. I guess sign of getting older and maybe more experience, but I look back at it, and some of the stuff I have online on my website, Run to the Curb, just the very detailed notes of how I got inducted into the fire company, literally minute by minute, blow by blow. I mean, it's you use that phrase "fire nerd," which is
I also used a couple other ones.
yeah,
so,
you did. Yeah, when I was here with you the other night,
Yes.
that's probably the most politically correct phrase that we can use to describe enthusiastic folks involved in the fire service.
That's good. That
Yeah.
covers a lot of sins.
Yeah, exactly that. So, but that's neat. And I also know that here at the museum, you have a logbook from somebody else that actually
We have a couple
Many
of them.
years
but
before
we
that,
found this
yeah.
one, and well, this one is the other one, Margaret. I don't. Anyway, this fella, I'm not sure who it was that kept this one, but
But they kept a pretty detailed
Oh.
log of what the
Look at
runs that they
hand-typed.
ran. Yeah. And what era was that?
this is in the 1940s,
Wow.
and I'm not sure what company this person was with, and if these were fires that he went to. But there's some unique fires here that, like the suburbs. He went to the DL&W Railroad coal trestle at the foot of Roland Street in Sloan. It was hooking. Don't give the companies. And then later on, in 3021 Delaware Avenue in Kenmore, engine 1926, hook and ladder 13, the
Wow.
deputy commissioner and the master mechanic. Frontier Oil Refinery. Now these are all November 1947.
Wow.
Frontier Oil Refinery, 3:45 a.m. The 4th Battalion, Truck 12, engines 19 and 26, Tonawanda, New York. So these must have been all out-of-town runs for the city.
Well, definitely, if they went into Sloan, which is in Cheektowaga, a village outside of the
Sure.
city and so forth. But, it's an interesting thing that you bring up here, Pat, and that is the fact that the era of that, 1947, we talked the other night about, when we started talking about this whole thing about storytelling, and how I think we got away from storytelling in the fire service for quite a while, and why some of that might have been. And Margaret, you weren't here at the time. Pat brought up about the fact that the guys coming back from World War II and so forth.
And you experienced it with your father.
Right, never
Yeah.
spoke of their experiences in the war.
Right.
And I asked Pat, I said, is that where the phrase "the silent generation" comes from? You know?
I would assume so.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't either, but Bill's back from that era of World War II, and would you say that's where that phrase may have come from World War II veterans and things like that? Or you were from Korea, probably.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
okay. So.
But it's interesting, and again, we talked. I have this logbook, so to speak, the service
Sure.
record from my father's military service in both Korea and in World War II and Korea. And it wasn't until it took an awful lot of poking and prodding to get him to share those stories.
Sure.
And like I said, I think we lost quite a while in the fire service where, for whatever reason, the timing wasn't right, where storytelling was viewed as boring bragging, or there was just some changing in the generations that facilitate that.
There are stories that shouldn't be told.
Oh,
too.
absolutely.
But
yes.
some of that is, once you get started, you may pick up some other folks in your platoon or working in the firehouse at night to tell some of their stories. But sometimes it takes some prodding.
Yeah.
I think some of it too is sometimes if you're in the middle of it, people don't always treat it as a big deal.
Right.
It's just part of my job. It's what I
Right.
do, whether it's your military service, your fire service, other jobs. And maybe they don't attach so much importance to it, and it's what they do every day. They don't
Right.
regard it as this extraordinary thing, whereas if you're not doing that job, you really do see something special about other people's line of work and service.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I think you bring up a good point, Margaret. That has a lot to do with it. It's just, and especially probably the more experienced you are, so to speak, the more routine those types of things become, so they don't stand out necessarily in your, memory or career as those who have less experience. And when you get the big one, so to speak, and everybody always remembers their, the big one, or at least their first big one, and so forth. But one of the things that I'm focused on today is the importance of storytelling. Obviously, the whole purpose for the website and for this radio show is kind of an offshoot of that. And but you and I were talking about the other night that just the tremendous value that is gained or lost by whether or not somebody is willing to share their story.
Well, like Margaret says, you guys are talking, those things either don't happen anymore or you're bragging or stuff like that. Yeah, but maybe it'll make you stop and think.
Yeah, and
if some type of an incident occurs and maybe somebody will remember, oh Jesus, maybe I shouldn't do this or something like that.
well, exactly that. And like you and I were talking the other night, as our fire load goes down, so to speak, the downside of that is so does our experience level.
Exactly.
So
True.
I think the importance and the value of relying on that storytelling is more and more, every single day.
Oh yeah.
Because until people can get enough experiences of their own, we need to share our experiences with them. And I just want to interject here and remind folks that our call-in number, if you do wish to call in and share your stories with us, and we certainly encourage you to do that. We're live from the Buffalo Fire Historical Society with Pat and Margaret Coghlan and a cast of characters here. But that call-in number is 347-327-9920. And if you're just joining us, you can also go to EerieCountyFireblotter.com. We're streaming live video, a first for the Firefighter Storytellers show and for the Firefighter Netcast as well. So we thank my good friend Jim Herr from the Fireblotter for doing that. And thanks, Jim, for being here with us tonight. But coming back to this whole concept about storytelling, basically that's what the whole museum is about, isn't it?
Well, it's to inform people of the history of the department, and sometimes we will get older folks in here that go, oh, I didn't know this was here. And all of a sudden they'll start talking about, I remember the firehouse on Cleveland Avenue or something like that. Mm-hmm. And then they'll mention, well, I knew Tommy Leif or something like that.
Sure,
and
a person or
right, exactly. So
yeah, and I refer to those as triggers.
yes, that's true.
Some of them are emotional, some of them are just recollecting stories or people that they'd interface with during their lives or
Sure.
their careers and stuff like that, and that's an important part of it too. We haven't gotten to the point about talking about when you retired and so forth, but let's just take a minute and talk about how Margaret shared with me a great story about right around the 100th anniversary of the fire department, that there was a display downtown of fire memorabilia that some folks had donated some things to, and when the anniversary was over, nobody wanted to give anything back. So
Once you empty the garage or the basement, it's a good thing.
Yeah, exactly. So, but that's kind of how the whole idea behind the museum was born out of that, wasn't it?
Very much so.
Or to vary on that statement was, and I think there's not that many of us left that were around then. Jimmy Shields has passed away, Gary Zwick has passed away. You don't see Art Herzig at all anymore, but he was the first president. Anyway, the story I was told was, and it was by Gary Zwick, was people had donated all this stuff for the displays. We cleaned it up, put it on display in the old Erie County Savings Bank in the Main Place Mall,
Okay.
and when it came time to return it, nobody wanted the stuff.
Yeah.
It wasn't a deal we really wanted to keep it, but nobody wanted it, and that's where we acquired a lot of our early stuff.
Yeah, stuff. Right. Right.
So-
Exactly.
And we were downtown at fire headquarters from 1980, about 82 till 93. And that's when we acquired this building and moved out here.
You were at Buffalo Fire headquarters.
We were upstairs on the second floor.
Upstairs, huh? I
And
never
what
knew
was
that.
what was the old handball court? That I guess when my father was in Engine 13.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Now it's interesting. I've been to Buffalo, Fire headquarters several times. They actually have some neat stuff just in the lobby there.
That's
as your
from
first
us.
entrance. Those are leftovers from there.
No, not low. Those
Yeah.
are stuff that
Yeah.
once in a while we'll go down and change it, but it's
Oh, okay.
been rare. So.
But there's a statue of a firefighter there. And,
Now
some
that
different things.
becomes a piece of contention, shall we
Okay,
say.
all right. Whoops. Maybe I shouldn't have brought that
No,
up.
I'll tell you, that
Yeah.
was from Forest Lawn Cemetery.
Really?
Yes, and that was on the volunteers that worked in the city, not the suburbs.
Okay.
And that's why the volunteers just knew it was a volunteer fireman.
Okay.
But that was from the city,
Right.
not from the suburbs. So we're gonna keep it down there.
Well, and probably, folks even today don't know that the Buffalo Fire Department started as a
About 1813.
organization of volunteer fire companies, right?
Right, yeah, about 1813. There was a book done in the very early 1900s called The History of the Buffalo Volunteer Fire Department.
Wow.
And a fellow by the name of Matt Endries did the book, and the year was 1906.
Wow.
And that book, we know where he got a lot of his information. Margaret and I found that out.
Yeah.
But anyway, there's rosters of hundreds of names on these companies.
Wow.
Wouldn't you say that?
It's been a great tool for almost genealogical type research. The names are alphabetical and it's not indexed, but you can actually, somebody will come in and say, my great-grandpa Joseph, and give us a name, and we can actually find some of those guys.
Really?
So in a way, we can provide a little bit of information, and once in a while we hit the jackpot and find something really cool.
I mean, is it a card file? Is it a notebook?
It's
What is
about a
it?
200-page book published
Really?
in 1906.
Oh, okay. That's the actual
and,
published book.
Yeah, and there's some color, well, actually not color, but black and white photographs and plates in there, and then just basically a list of every man who was in a fire company back then.
Wow.
So, sort of like the history of every particular fire company. And there were about 41 companies altogether that comprised all the volunteers up until 1880. So,
Until 1880.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
is that when the transition was
July
made to a
1st
career
of
department?
1880,
Yeah.
the department became, quote, fully paid.
Okay.
Prior to that, I guess every time they got a steamer, which necessitated a hose cart,
Yeah.
you had to have somebody to drive the steamer, somebody to operate the pumps, and somebody to maintain the horses. And you also needed a driver for the hose cart.
Wow.
And probably for when they got the horse-drawn apparatus is when literally the paid men started. And when we started the first July 1st of 1880, I think we had 13 engine companies, 2 hose companies, and 3 ladder companies. And then it accelerated from there over the years.
So it was, I guess, born out of the fact that they needed somebody full time to take care of the horses and the
Yeah,
equipment
so
and so
probably
forth.
in the 1870s
Yeah.
we had paid men, but they were just the raw crew, shall we say, the initial crew of a driver and an engineer to operate, and maybe a stoker to operate the steamer,
Wow.
and somebody to drive the hose wagon.
Wow. That's amazing stuff. That's very cool. And I just want to remind our listeners, if you go to runtothecurb.com and look up the first article there titled Fire Nerd, Pat Coghlan, who's sitting across from me here. We're at the Buffalo Fire Historical Society. There's a link to the website for the Buffalo Fire Museum. I encourage you to go there. They compiled a tremendous number of great photos, just showing you around the museum itself. And I also know that there was a project done a couple of years ago to kind of do some data archiving and so forth like that.
We had a class of graduate students from the University of Buffalo Library Science program, and they spent a whole semester with us, and for the most part they went through our collection and they chose certain areas they wanted to study, and it was really great for us because they made us look at things that we thought we knew a lot about and we had been looking at and telling people about for years behind glasses and cases, and we kind of had to get everything out and look at it again and go, and it was a great chance to learn something new. And they brought in their professional photographers from UB and put together a basic website for us, and it was a great jumping off point to do future work and to kind of look at our collection with a different eye. But it was amazing to have like 32, 35 students in here, mostly adults, mostly different work backgrounds, different programs, different life experience, and they all had a special skill, and they brought all of their details and all of their kind work and spent a whole semester with us. It was a great time.
Wow,
so
that's pretty cool. And I'm hoping, I'm sure that they came away with a much more, a greater appreciation for the fire service and the history of the fire service. And,
we tried to teach them a few things.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I think that one of the better things we got out of it is just the power and the uses of technology. It really gave us a chance to share the collection with people who aren't able to get here, people out of town, people who might have a connection to Buffalo or a relative on the job here. And it was a nice way to take something that we think so highly of in our collection and share that with literally the world. So you learn some of the possibilities and what you can do to kind of share your collection and get your word out, your message out. So that was a great opportunity for us to learn just how easy that can be. So
neat, very neat. So kind of a virtual tour of the museum that they
Very much so.
that they provided. Okay.
Very much so.
And there's a link again pointing you to runtothecurb.com and Patty Coghlan's story. The links in that story are listed down at the bottom of the page, and there is one there for that archive, and I encourage you to go there. Also have some great photos of Pat during his working years, and some neat things there. So getting back a little bit, Pat, to your run through the Buffalo Fire Department. You were at Engine 21 and spent some time there, and you made lieutenant. And where were you? Where were you assigned
to? Engine 24 for about 4 or 5 months.
Okay.
And when I first went to 24, which at that time used to be at Leroy and Halbert, the company is now closed. But I seem to have a unique thing through my career in the fire department. I started in Ladder 3, that's closed. I became a chief's driver, they did away with that. I went to Engine 24 as a lieutenant, that's closed. In the meantime, I went to Engine 27 for a month, that's closed. They created Rescue 1 out of that. So I had a unique career.
Don't take it personal, Pat. No.
No, it was all politicians and money.
Yeah. Well, if you follow the trade journals and the websites and so forth, we're going through that all over again.
Boy, are we ever, and even more so now.
Yeah.
But no, I went to 24, and right after going to 24, I went to lieutenant school for like 2 weeks out in Cheektowaga.
Right. Okay.
All right. You happy now?
You come around. All right. There it is.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
And left. The bids come out for everybody in May, and I got detailed to Engine 33 on Care Street. And 11 years later, I left 33. But I did it and got it. So, or 10 years.
Yeah.
It was 78 to 88.
Yeah.
And then in 88, I was asked to go to Rescue 1, and I was there for 11 years, till 99.
Great. Great. Now, going back to Engine 33, how was the transition? You've been at, obviously, a couple of engine companies and so forth, but in general, starting out in a truck company and then transitioning to, going from a truckie and a tillerman to a hose jockey.
Actually, let's go back to when I was in Truck 3.
Yeah.
I had a detail one night to Engine 3.
Okay.
We had a fire in a tavern in a bowling alley on Clinton Street, Clinton near Smith. And I swore after that night I would never go to an engine company because I was soaked and I was cold. Well, needless to say, a few years later I ended up as a firefighter in 21, which was great. I knew all the guys, they had a good time.
Yeah.
And then went to 33. 24 was good, I knew all of those guys. We didn't have a lot of fires. I think we had one fire while I was there that they put the pumps in here. And that was a grass fire. And that was like the last couple days I worked.
And where was that?
The grass fire?
No, where was, what company?
Engine 24.
Engine 24, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
They had a couple fires while I was at lieutenant school,
Yeah,
but nothing, no work while I was there from January to May.
wow.
So
Wow. Now, how did you like that? Did you prefer to be in a busy house?
the best thing about that was if I had to go home and get some tools, I was in the district. Because they were the second new engine at my home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you were up in North Buffalo?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny.
So,
That's very funny.
but no, then I went to 33.
Yeah.
And like I say, 10 years I spent there, and they were a lot busier, and we had a lot of fires.
Yeah.
And that's when we first started taking on the first aid work with every engine company in the city. In fact, one thing when I was at 24, I had the honor or displeasure, or whatever you want to call it, of placing Squad 6 out of service. They called us downtown, bring the squad. They switched the insulator over to the pumper. They gave us 6 more Band-Aids, 2 more rolls of Curlex, and a bottle of iodine, and that was the initial. Right, Billy? Remember that? Sure. That was the initial first aid.
Yeah.
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 And the Band-Aids were held up with a rubber band, and
Yeah.
at that time the superintendent of supplies wanted the rubber bands back.
Yeah, no doubt. No
So.
doubt. Oh, God, that's funny. That's funny. Well, we've come a little further today.
Oh,
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe,
You get 3 rolls of Curlex instead of 1, right?
Yeah.
You got to cut it off so you save it.
Yeah, maybe after the break we'll bring John Adolph from our EMS division in to comment on that. But I just want to remind everybody listening, you're listening to Firefighter Storytellers. I'm your host, Tiger Schmittendorf. Glad to have you with us. We are live from the Buffalo Fire Museum, Buffalo Fire Historical Society. Literally just surrounded with memorabilia and reminders of the rich heritage of the fire service, not just in the city of Buffalo, but all over Western New York and all over the fire service. Can't think of a better place to be with my good friend Pat Coghlan and his daughter Margaret, and a cast of characters sitting in the cheap seats here listening in. But we're going to take a break here, and when we come back, Pat, we have a very interesting caller on the line that wants to speak to you, and it might be somebody that you know. So I remind everybody, we're going to go to a commercial break with John Mitchell in Chicago. When we come back, the call-in number, 347-327-9920. We'll be back in a minute. Welcome back to Firefighter Storytellers. I'm your host, Tiger Schmittendorf, and we are live from the Buffalo Fire Historical Society. Sitting across the table from a little bit of a crusty character, refers to himself as a fire nerd, and that's being polite. Patty Coghlan and his daughter Margaret is sitting here at the table with us. We're just sitting across the table from each other, sipping some coffee. Got some M&Ms on the table just to keep us going, and got some folks also here with us just listening in. John Adolph and Kevin and Bill Broutlick, and also, if you're just joining us, we are streaming live video via the ErieCountyFireblotter.com. My good friend Jim Herr is the man behind the camera, and Jim, once again, thanks for doing that. Our call-in number, 347-327-9920. And speaking of call-ins, Patty, I believe we have a caller on the line who you might know or actually be related to. Who do we have here?
Dave Henry.
Hi, Dave.
Hi, Tiger. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
You want to say hello to Uncle Pat?
Hello, Uncle Pat.
What do you need, David?
I need nothing. I just wanted to call in and let everybody know what an influence you've been on me and The reason I became a firefighter was because of you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And your dad was a firefighter too. I know you remember that. So.
Yes, I do. And if I remember, that was a catcher player.
Well, cool, Dave. Thanks for calling in, and Merry Christmas to you, and Happy Holidays.